On my wedding day, my family didn't show up. I felt anxious and called my mom. She laughed and said, "Oh, was that today? I thought a trip would be more fun." I could hear my sister giggling in the background. I didn't say anything and just put a picture of myself in my wedding dress with some guests on Facebook. Hours later, my parents saw it and hurried to the venue, looking worried. That morning in Greenwich had a different feel. The gentle April sunshine made the cherry blossoms in St. Mary's church garden a lovely pink. Inside this historic church, Emma Wilson was getting ready to say one of the biggest promises of her life. Emma was a pediatrician at the City Children's Hospital. She had a kind smile and a quiet strength inside. She always made promises and kept them, which made her co-workers trust her deeply. On her days off, she loved taking pictures of smiling kids in the hospital. She earned 150,000 Oz a year, which showed how good she was at her job. Her fiancé, David Chen, was a branch manager at a local IT company. His parents were immigrants from China who worked hard to raise him. Family was very important to him. Even though he made $200,000 a year, he was humble and earned the trust of everyone around him. They had met at a charity event for the hospital. The Wilson family was famous in Greenwich. Everyone knew them. Emma's dad, Robert Wilson, was the president of Wilson Properties, a real estate company that made $20 million in sales each year. Lately, though, he seemed to care more about golf and his social media than managing his business. Her mom, Margaret, was known as a helpful member of the community who stayed home to raise her kids. But she loved looking at social media and was popular as an Instagram user with 20,000 followers. She often went to the spa 3 times a week. Emma worried that her mum cared too much about getting likes on her posts. Emma's sister, Ashley, had gotten her job as the financial director at their dad's company because of their family connection. She cared more about her social media than her job and had 100,000 followers. She spent her $10,000 monthly paycheck almost entirely on looking good. Jennifer Anderson, the owner of the biggest mall in the area, was an important part of the Wilson family. She was their top client and made transactions worth $10 million annually. She was respected for her charitable work and had been a family friend of Emma's since childhood. 50 guests were invited to the wedding. From the father's side, there were local grandparents, 5 sets of aunts and uncles, and 8 cousins. From the mother's side, there were 3 sets of aunts and uncles and 6 cousins expected to come. Important guests included Mr. and Mrs. Jennifer Anderson, 2 doctors from the hospital, 3 groups of business partners, 3 families of childhood friends, and the church pastor and his wife. This guest list showed how well known the Wilson family was. The wedding budget was $100,000, and guests were asked to wear formal clothes. Everything was ready for the big day, and everyone was excited to celebrate with the cherry blossoms blooming. In the bridal room of St. Mary's Church, Emma sat quietly in front of a big mirror, wearing a beautiful white dress. Maria, the makeup artist, was putting on the finishing touches while Linda, a close friend, adjusted Emma's lace veil and looked outside. The spring morning sun lit up the cherry blossoms in the garden, making it look like a lovely painting. "Still no sign of your mom or anyone else," Linda said, sounding worried. "Margaret should have been here by now. She promised to arrive early to take pictures for social media." Emma remembered her mom saying the night before, "Let's take gorgeous photos first thing." It felt odd that they hadn't arrived. Emma looked at her phone anxiously. There were no calls or messages from her parents. Even Ashley's Instagram, which she usually updated every half hour, hadn't changed since last night. "Your face looks a bit pale," Maria said with concern. Still working on Emma's makeup, lines of worry appeared on her forehead as she noticed Emma's skin losing color. Sarah, the wedding planner, walked in with her checklist. "I've finished confirming with the pastor," she said, but then realized something was wrong. "Where's your family?" No one could answer, and the silence in the room grew heavy. Outside, people were whispering, "I don't see any of the Wilsons. How strange." Just then, Emma's phone rang. It was her mom. Everyone looked at Emma as if the room held its breath. "Mom, are you almost here?" Emma asked. Her mom's cheerful voice came through. You could hear the sounds of waves and music in the background. "Oh, Emma, I'm in Hawaii right now." Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. "What? Today's my wedding day." "Oh, is that today? I thought a vacation would be more fun," her mom replied. Emma could hear her sister laughing in the background. "Mom, this beach chair is awesome." Emma felt her hands shake. A single tear rolled down her cheek, ruining the makeup Maria had worked so hard on. "Are you kidding?" Emma's voice shook with anger and sadness. She couldn't tell how she felt anymore. "Oh, I'm sorry, it's Sophie's spring break. So we thought a family vacation was more important." More laughter from her sister. "This is the best angle for Instagram. I'll send you pictures later." Then the call ended. Emma dropped her phone, and it hit the carpet with a soft thud. The sound echoed loudly in her heart. Linda, Maria, and Sarah stood still, watching this unbelievable situation. Time seemed to drag on in the soft morning light. Then there was a quiet knock at the door, 3 short knocks, as if fate was calling. "Excuse me, Emma." Jennifer Anderson stood at the door looking serious. She held an iPad in her hands. "I saw what your family posted on social media," she said. On the iPad, the screen showed pictures of the Wilson family smiling on a beach in Hawaii. They looked so happy, as if nothing was wrong. "I've been your friend for 20 years, and I've watched over you," Jennifer said, her tone a mix of gentle love and anger. "Today, let me be there for you in place of your family." Emma felt tears streaming down her face, not from sadness, but from being touched by true kindness. "Let's post right now," Jennifer said, sounding determined. "What do you want to post?" Emma asked. "Yes, on their beloved social media. But first let's take a beautiful picture." Jennifer took Emma's hand, and the warmth made Emma feel comforted. They walked to the center of the church and stood in front of the colorful stained glass windows. The morning sunshine shined through, giving them a magical glow. "Let's create new bonds between us," Jennifer said. Just then, the church bells rang like a new beginning. The sound echoed throughout Greenwich, announcing that this day would be special. Emma nodded quietly, wiping her tears away. That morning, she began to understand what real love and family truly meant. One by one, guests began to arrive at St. Mary's Church. The sunshine lit up the church, creating beautiful colors on the floor from the stained glass. The first person to arrive was her grandfather, who had a wise and dignified face with a white beard. He walked in carefully, and Jennifer quietly explained what had happened. "What happened?" he asked, his voice shaking with anger. His feelings showed that he had always protected the Wilson family's honor. "This is unacceptable. This cannot be forgiven." He spoke with the wisdom that came from 80 years of life. He held his cane tightly, its sound tapping against the floor as he stood there. Emma's maternal aunt arrived next, looking even paler than Emma. She was speechless at what her sister had done. All she could do was hold Emma's hand and cry silently. The warmth from that hand reminded Emma of their strong family connection. "How could they do such a terrible thing?" she finally whispered, sadness in her voice. As more relatives arrived, each learned what had happened, and their shock turned to anger. The doctors from the hospital, always calm, were furious about this betrayal. Their longtime business partners wore serious faces, never seen before. They understood how serious the Wilson family's actions were. Childhood friends embraced Emma in silence, needing no words. Their love said everything. In the church garden, the cherry blossoms were in full bloom, and their petals scattered beautifully. It seemed unreal that what was happening today was real. The wedding ceremony was getting closer, and the atmosphere felt serious. The pastor came quietly and offered special words of blessing. He had performed many weddings during his 40 years at this church. "Your wedding today will please God, because it's surrounded by genuine love," he said. "Sometimes God gives us challenges, but after those challenges, deeper love can be found." Emma and David stood in the center of the chapel with sunlight, shining through the stained glass, wrapping around them like a warm hug. Everyone watched them with love and determination. The pastor's voice filled the church. His words echoed deep inside everyone's heart. David held Emma's hand firmly yet gently, expressing his feelings without words. "Emma," he said with deep care, "I vow to you now that even though we are not related by blood, we will create a new family together with everyone gathered here. Today we will build the start of our family story." Tears of happiness sparkled in Emma's eyes. Unlike before, these tears showed her new hope. After the ceremony, the guests came to the reception, feeling a strong connection that went beyond blood. Their faces showed new determination, no longer just sadness and anger. Her grandfather stood up slowly and the crowd hushed. "Today I feel both the deepest anger and the most profound emotions," he began. His words held the weight of years of respect and family honor. "The parents and sister didn't come to my granddaughter's wedding. This will never be forgiven. There has never been a greater disgrace in our family's history." A heavy silence filled the room as everyone realized how serious this was. But seeing the love in the room, he said, "I believe that true family isn't only about blood ties, it's about caring for one another, and that's what we have here." Jennifer Anderson stood up, her presence combining respect and warmth as she spoke. "Everyone, I have a suggestion." The room buzzed with interest. "Now that we are tied by new bonds, why don't we celebrate those connections on social media?" Their favorite place, Emma's aunt stood, wiping her tears. "We can change our feelings from anger about my sister to love for our new family." One by one, guests began sharing their thoughts. They proposed ideas that went far beyond anger. Each suggestion was filled with determination. Soon, a large circle formed. 50 guests held hands, creating a beautiful circle that represented their new family bond. "Let's unite as a new family," Jennifer said confidently. David squeezed Emma's hand tightly, and everyone there felt the love. "Everyone who came to our wedding is our true family. We want to share our life together with all of you who chose love over blood ties." All the guests joined hands and made a vow. At that moment, the church bells rang again, ringing with a clear sound that celebrated new beginnings. Jennifer quietly pulled out her smartphone. She looked determined as she prepared for the counterattack about to take place. Emma's post was shared on social media. A single photo of her, in front of the stained glass windows, warm sunlight behind her, standing alongside Jennifer with smiles that reflected deep love. Below the photo, Emma's words unfolded. "I want to introduce today's special guest, Mrs. Jennifer Anderson, owner of Anderson Mall. She has been my family friend for 20 years and has always cared for me." The post was shown live on screens at the reception as everyone watched, holding their breath. "This morning, I got a call from my mom saying she would miss the wedding. The whole family decided not to come on the biggest day of my life because Hawaii seemed like more fun." Small gasps went through the crowd, but they weren't sounds of sadness. It felt like excitement for what would happen next. In that moment, Mrs. Anderson rushed to Emma. "We can't let your new life begin like this. Mrs. Anderson, who treats me like family, shows me what it means to be an adult, while my father, mother, and sister chose a vacation instead." As soon as Emma's post went up, responses came flooding in. First, people from the local community started commenting. Then, business responses followed suit. Soon, voices from all over social media spoke out, sharing their thoughts. An emergency meeting began with all the guests. "Let's figure out what to do next," Jennifer mentioned. "The business fallout will be significant." One of the business partners spoke up. "Wilson Properties stock is already dropping fast. People are questioning Robert Wilson's ability to lead." An uncle who was a lawyer suggested, "Legally, we have options. We could sue for breaking the wedding contract, or we could take action over damage to the business's reputation." But Emma shook her head. "This isn't about money. I just wanted my family's love." At those words, the room went quiet. Her grandfather stood slowly again, speaking with pride. "This decision is about our family's honor and pride." Everyone then took one last photo together. The guests made a large circle around the bride and groom, their faces showing hope and connection. As the photographer gave the signal, the camera clicked, and the church bells rang out once more. The final post was made, a serious declaration signed by all, 50 names. "Today, we, as an extended family, completely end our ties with Robert Wilson, Margaret Wilson and Ashley Wilson, who have destroyed family bonds and broken our most important promises." As soon as the post was made, the spring sunset lit up the church's stained glass windows. Rainbow colors filled the room, blessing the beginning of their new family. Emma held David's hand tightly. No more tears fell, her eyes now filled with determination for the future. Outside, cherry blossom petals floated in the warm evening light, symbolizing goodbyes to the past and welcoming new beginnings. As the sun set over Greenwich, the news spread everywhere. It would cause big waves in both the social media and real worlds. 1 year later, Greenwich welcomed another spring. The cherry blossoms in St. Mary's Church garden bloomed wonderfully again, but many things had changed by then. The story of the wedding incident had traveled all over the United States and was featured in news stories. It became a lesson about a family too, focused on social media and a warning for today's society. The downfall of the Wilson family happened quickly. Robert lost his contract with Anderson Mall, which meant a loss of $10 million a year. Soon, other important business partners also ended their deals. "We can't trust a manager who can't even keep family together," they said. 6 months later, the stock price of Wilson Properties hit its lowest point in history. Under pressure from shareholders for his management mistakes, Robert was forced to resign as president and ended up running a small real estate business. Meanwhile, Margaret's fall was even worse. Her wedding post backfired on Instagram, and people criticized her heavily. Her account was shut down within a day, cutting her off from social media. Relationships she had nurtured over the years disappeared in an instant. Unable to afford her spa treatments 3 times a week, she now sighed sadly every time she looked into the mirror. Her doctor diagnosed her with depression, and she spent her days at home feeling lost. Ashley too had to stop her influencer career completely. The title of influencer who betrayed family became a heavy burden in social media circles, and she lost almost all her followers within a week. All her sponsorships ended, and she lost her job as financial director at her father's company. taking a part-time position at a small cafe, a job she once looked down upon. But this year also brought joy and new connections. Last month, Emma and David announced their first pregnancy, and that post received over 100,000 likes and many congratulatory messages. Jennifer was thrilled to accept the role of godmother. "This is the greatest honor of my life," she said, expressing her love. Emma found new satisfaction in her job at the hospital. Her hobby of photographing children's smiles became a popular feature called Today's Smile on their official social media. Every Sunday, the new family gathered for dinner at Jennifer Anderson's house. They enjoyed spending warm time together like a true family. "We have become a family beyond just blood connections." Her grandfather made these comments at dinner, and everyone nodded in agreement. New family photos were taken every month, not for social media, but to keep precious memories alive. Recently, 50 people gathered again at St. Mary's Church to celebrate their first wedding anniversary mass. The pastor, who had seen the year's changes, offered words of blessing, saying, "True family is built by hearts that care for each other. You have displayed the most beautiful example of this." Emma softly touched her belly, where new life grew. "I want to show this child what a real family is." David held Emma's shoulders gently while warm smiles surrounded them. The story of the wedding incident is still sometimes mentioned on social media, but it is no longer filled with anger and sadness. True family isn't just about blood. It's about the ties made from love and respect. This lesson has quietly reached many people living in today's world. In the church garden, a gentle spring breeze lifted the cherry blossom petals. The scene remained beautiful, but its meaning was even greater now, as it blessed the bonds of their new family. If you enjoyed this Reddit story and want to hear more, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more thrilling content. Your support means a lot. Thank you for being part of this journey.